My toxic parents begging for help after cutting me off when I was poor. They stood on my doorstep like ghosts from a past I had buried. They called me a failure and threw me out into the cold when I was just a boy with a busted dream. Years later, after I had painstakingly built an empire from the dirt they left me in, they showed up, broken, and begging me to save them. They saw the big house, the manicured lawn, the life of comfort, and they thought they had a claim to it. They had no idea I was about to give them exactly, and only, what they deserved. This isn't just a story about revenge, not really, though I know some of you will see it that way. It's a story about consequences. It's about the brutal, unyielding math of cause and effect. It's about what happens when you treat your own child like a stock you're investing in, only to dump your shares the moment the market turns. They treated their love like a reward I had to earn, a prize for good performance, and when I couldn't pay up, they rescinded their affection and cut me off completely. But here's the fundamental truth they never managed to grasp: when you leave someone to starve in the wilderness, you don't get to show up later and ask for a seat at the feast they prepared with their own two bloody hands. You don't get to praise the harvest when you refuse to offer a single seed in the planting season. It all started 7 years ago. I was 23. And in my parents' meticulously kept ledger of family successes, I was a massive write-off. A complete and utter failure. I'd taken the kind of risk you only take when you're young and fueled by pure passion. I poured every cent I had, along with a small, hopeful loan, into a tech startup with my best friend. It was our entire world. We lived and breathed it, working out of a cramped garage that always smelled like damp concrete and ozone. We were convinced we were building the future. But the market is a cruel and indifferent beast, and after a grueling, soul-crushing year, we simply ran out of money. The company imploded. It vanished, leaving a crater where my dreams used to be. I was left with absolutely nothing. Actually, that's not true. I was left with worse than nothing. I was deep in debt, with the weight of failure pressing down on me so hard it was difficult to breathe. I will never, ever forget the shame of making that call. I stared at my phone for what felt like an hour, my thumb hovering over their contact. My voice was shaking when I finally asked for help. I wasn't asking for a handout, not a gift. I was begging for a temporary loan, a lifeline. Just enough to cover my portion of rent for 2 months while I scrambled to get back on my feet. I had already found a part-time job at a grim little cafe, but that first paycheck felt like a lifetime away, and my landlord wasn't the sentimental type. The silence on the other end of the phone was so deep and cold it felt like a physical thing. Then, my father's voice, each word dripping with a familiar, weaponized disappointment, cut right through me. A loan? You have the audacity to ask us for a loan after that failed little project of yours? We told you it was a stupid idea from the start. Your brother, at your age, was already on a management track at a respectable firm. That comparison was his signature move, a finely honed knife he always knew exactly where to twist for maximum damage. It was the story of my childhood, my pragmatic, successful older brother held up as the gold standard I could never meet. My mother, never one to be left out of a lecture, jumped in, her voice full of that cloying, fake sympathy that was somehow more insulting than open hostility. Honey, we can't just throw good money after bad. That would be irresponsible. Sometimes in life, you have to learn lessons the hard way. This is on you, sweetie. It's time to take responsibility. I begged them. I let go of my pride and I pleaded. I explained, in a voice that was cracking with desperation, that I was about to be evicted. That all I needed was a small safety net to stop the freefall. But my father's final words on that call are not just a memory, they are burned into the very fabric of my being. A safety net is for people who haven't deliberately set themselves on fire, he said, his voice flat and final. You made your choice. You wanted to be a big-shot entrepreneur. Well, this is what happens when you fail. Don't come crawling back to us when you're living on the street. Maybe then you'll finally learn some real responsibility. Then they hung up. Just like that. The click of the phone ending the call was the sound of my world ending. I was completely, utterly alone. They didn't just say no, they passed a sentence on me. They found me at the absolute lowest point in my life, bleeding on the ground, and instead of offering a hand, they kicked me in the ribs. They made it terrifyingly clear that their love was conditional, a transaction based on the one thing I didn't have, success. The pain of being thrown away by the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally was so much worse than any eviction notice or bank statement. It was the crushing, soul-destroying realization that to my own parents, I was disposable. Those next 2 years didn't just almost break me, they took a sledgehammer to every part of my life. I lost the apartment. I packed my few remaining belongings into the trunk of my beat-up '98 Civic. For weeks, I slept in that car, curling up in the back seat, waking up with a stiff neck and a film of condensation on the inside of the windows. The shame was a constant companion. Eventually, a friend from college, a true friend, found out and insisted I crash on his lumpy, stained couch. That couch became my entire world. Every single day was a brutal, relentless fight to survive. My life became a blurry cycle of exhausting labor. I worked 3 jobs. My mornings started at 5 a.m. waiting tables at that cafe, forcing a smile for angry customers. My afternoons were spent in the cavernous, freezing cold stockroom of a grocery store, my muscles aching as I lifted heavy boxes. And my nights, fueled by cheap, bitter coffee, were spent doing freelance data entry until my eyes burned and the letters on the screen blurred together. I practically lived off instant noodles and day-old bread. I was exhausted down to my bones, a ghost haunting the edges of the city. But underneath all that pain and exhaustion, something else was taking root in the scorched earth of my life, a cold, hard, unshakable resolve. My parents' words, "This is on you," kept echoing in my head. They had meant them as a final, crushing blow. A verdict. But in the lonely silence of my friend's living room, I decided to make them my mantra. I would repeat them to myself in the dark. Fine. If this failure is on me, then my success is going to be on me, too. Alone. I used every spare minute and every spare dollar to claw my way forward. I taught myself to code. I took free online courses on a cheap, second-hand laptop. I spent my weekends at the public library, devouring books on programming languages until the librarian had to ask me to leave at closing time. I built clunky, ugly little projects in the middle of the night, failing and trying again, over and over. It was a slow, painful, agonizing grind. There was no glamour, no sudden breakthrough. Just work. But little by little, I got better. I landed one small freelance gig building a simple website for. Here, it must be a drop in the bucket by now. It's the least you can do for your family. For the parents who raised you. The parents who raised you. The nerve was so breathtaking it was almost impressive. The sheer, unmitigated gall. I let the silence hang there. I let it stretch and grow, filling every corner of the room. I let them squirm in it. I watched the greedy hope flickering in their eyes, the same eyes that had looked at me with pure contempt all those years ago. When I finally spoke, my voice was dead calm, betraying none of the storm inside me. $200,000, I repeated slowly, letting them hear the weight of the words. That is a lot of money. I paused, letting them think I was considering it. It's funny. I remember another time when a much smaller amount of money felt like life or death to me. They both tensed up. Their faces tightened. They knew exactly where this was going. Do you remember a phone call about 7 years ago? I asked, my voice getting sharper, harder. I was 23. I was about to be homeless. I was terrified. And I begged you for a loan. Not a gift. A loan of $500. My father started to sputter, waving a dismissive hand. Now, that was different, that was a totally different situation, we were just trying to. Trying to what? I cut him off, my voice finally rising, filled with 7 years of suppressed rage. Teach me a lesson? Is that the bedtime story you tell yourself so you can sleep at night? The noble parents practicing tough love? I took a step closer and looked right into his eyes. You told me, and I quote, "Don't come crawling back when you're living on the street." You called me a failure. You said my dreams were stupid. You hung up on me. My mother burst into loud, heaving sobs. We didn't mean it like that. We were just scared for you. We did it because we love you. No, I said, and the word landed with the absolute finality of a gavel. You did it because you were ashamed of me. Your love was a performance review, and I wasn't meeting my quarterly targets. The second I became a liability instead of a trophy you could show off to your friends, you wrote me off. You liquidated the asset. I walked over to the large floor-to-ceiling window overlooking my garden, the garden of the house I bought with my own 2 hands, with money earned from the business I built from nothing. This life I have? I built this. I built it on sleepless nights on a stained couch. I built it on cheap instant noodles that tasted like cardboard. I built it on the kindness of friends who were more family to me in a week than you ever were in 2 decades. I didn't just build this without your help, I built it in spite of your abandonment. Every dollar I have is proof that I survived you. I turned back to face them. They looked like they'd been physically slapped. They had truly, genuinely believed they could just waltz back into my life and claim a piece of my success. The sheer entitlement was staggering. So, to answer your request, I said, my voice steady and cold again. The answer is no. I will not give you $200,000. I will not give you $100,000. I won't give you a single cent. The bank of your successful son is permanently closed. That lesson you wanted to teach me all those years ago? I learned it perfectly. I learned how to stand on my own 2 feet. I learned that I don't need you. So now, you get to learn the same lesson. Watching them walk away from my house, defeated, stoop-shouldered, and empty-handed, didn't bring me that sudden, cinematic rush of victory I used to fantasize about during those cold nights in my car. It brought something so much better, so much deeper, peace. It was the quiet, profound peace of a wound that could finally close. It felt like setting down a huge, invisible weight I didn't even realize I was still carrying after all these years. In that moment, standing in the silence of my own home, I wasn't the failure they cast out, and I wasn't the success story they were trying to cash in on. I was just free. Free from their judgment. Free from their conditional, transactional love. Free from the lifelong, exhausting chore of trying to earn their approval. The need for it had been surgically, if brutally, removed 7 years ago, and their visit was the final confirmation that the operation had been a success. My real family is Mark, the friend who gave me his couch without a moment's hesitation. It's my partner, who celebrates my wins as if they are their own and talks me through my losses without an ounce of judgment. It's my team at work, the people who believe in the vision we're building together. I made my own family, just like I made my own success. My worth was never tied to my bank account or to what my parents thought of me. It was something I had to forge for myself, in the dark, after they had deliberately shut off all the lights. And that self-made strength, that hard-won peace? I wouldn't trade that for anything. So, that's my story. I know it's an intense situation, and people are going to have some strong, deeply divided opinions. I have to ask you, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Was I too harsh, or did they simply reap what they had sown for years? Was this justice, or was it cold-hearted revenge? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see the different perspectives, and I try to read as many as I can. And if you appreciate this kind of raw, honest storytelling and want to hear more, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It lets me know you value these stories. Thanks for listening.